Welcome to Resilience Unravelled. Hi everybody and welcome to Resilience Unravelled, a podcast that examines all aspects of personal and organisational resilience. A huge all-encompassing subject that covers the ability to thrive in life by harnessing your cognitive, emotional, physiological and contextual abilities. I share stories from people who have thrived despite remarkable obstacles, as well as highly successful practitioners and experts across a range of topics. And this podcast introduces their amazing stories and expertise, as well as my own reflections, perspectives, strategies and tips, which come from my own synthesis of themes and trends from wider learning. You can go to qedod.com/extras to access offers, tools and resources, including free articles and ebooks. For those of you that would be interested in supporting our work and contributing more proactively, you can find our new Patreon page at patreon.com. Then search for Resilience Space Unravelled. So, let's get started. Enjoy the show. So today I'm really excited to be talking to someone I met back end of last year. We were in a business networking event together on the south coast of England, and Andy ran a presentation skills course which I attended, which was really fascinating. And apart from having a brilliant voice and a fund of fantastic stories, it was a really brilliant training session. So I thoroughly enjoyed it and thought, because of some of the stories he talked about, really fascinating to have him on as a guest, really coming from a different perspective. And one of the joyful things about having Andy on today is that he's in England. So first of all, hello, Andy.
Russell, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the amazing opportunity. And what is, let's face it, a bit of a cold, wet, miserable January, isn't it, in the UK?
I know. It's a terrible indictment of us Brits that whenever we first meet, we talk about the weather. But the last podcast person I interviewed was in California, and she was telling me how hot it was, and I was like, I'm looking at
And I say it's compulsory first conversation, but we're not allowed to talk about Brexit or the royal family.
No, that's we can talk about sex and politics now, but none of those people do it. So we met quite recently, Andy. So introduce yourself to our listeners. What would you describe what you do and a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Joshua. Well, I kind of have two faces in a way. One is, and a lot of my recent background is I've worked a lot in the third sector, which is kind of the charity sector in the UK and internationally, kind of helping charities to launch campaigns and appeals. And the thing that and obviously where we met is my other face, which is kind of helping people to present and get their propositions across properly, whether that's personal presentations or actually, getting a corporate proposition pitch across really, really effectively. And the reason I've kind of got two faces is they're both very, very similar skill sets in that when we're authentic, when we're honest, when we're ourselves, whether that's in a corporate environment or in a charity environment, or actually, I suppose, in real life, I think that's when effectively, our message comes across in a really powerful way. So I love working both with companies and corporates to look at their kind of either individually to get their teams, to get the message and the proposition across. But my real love, if you like, is really helping charities to launch kind of a big appeals and campaigns about a particular cause or value that there's a dire need or there's a real issue they want to resolve. And it's about telling, without the cliche, getting people to really be honest and tell very honest stories. I think we all, because we're so marketed at all the time, I love helping people to kind of really be themselves, whether that's in the corporate world, the charity world, or elsewhere.
And is that your sort of definition of authenticity? Because you've mentioned that twice now. So authentic is obviously something that's important. So how would you unpack authenticity?
It's a challenge, isn't it? Because I think when we show a little bit of vulnerability, and in the right way, when we're comfortable to do that, whether that's in an audience of 600 people or in a group of 10 people or one-to-one even in a meeting, I think it can resonate in the right way with people because they kind of get that, we're all facing different battles at different times. It's about having an ability to have resilience and learn from everyone's experiences. And I think we always listen. We always listen to people's stories and their backgrounds and how they've dealt with issues. And I think the more authentic we can be and honest in that. Because I think even if you do meet the occasional person who you can kind of get that feel, hang on, they've really fluffed up that story, they've elaborated it a little bit too much. We pick up on that as human beings very quickly. So I think a very honest, authentic story where people are sometimes even brutally honest, and that's where charity work is so powerful. I think it can really resonate with the listener.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because actually this idea of storytelling has become one of the big things, isn't it? And I like it in terms of resilience about, creating a future story for yourself. It's because stories don't always have to be about the past, although they tend to be. But it's this idea of creating the narrative around the future and where you're going. And I guess fundraising and charitable work is a bit like that, isn't it? It's almost legacy building and the other way around, almost.
And so passionate because, with a lot of charity, a lot of charities, their causes are actually the people that support them. You're not buying a product. It's not like in a commercial world where you're given a real big chunk of money and you're getting this thing in return. With especially charity work, and that's why I get so fired up about charity work, is that when people tell their stories very well and their cause very well, individuals, either with significant wealth or not, buy into it. And what they're buying is a sense of buying into the story, buying into the truth of the story, and giving something back. So I sometimes joke with, especially charity people, that they're not in the fundraising business. They're in the happiness business. Just stay with me for a minute. What I mean by that is that actually it's emotional. It's absolutely emotional. You're engaging with people, and the best way to do that is not with here's our facts and figures of our annual review of how we're spending your money. It's actually, this is about Tony. It's about Sarah. And really getting into their personal stories. And I think, especially when I'm working with individuals corporately to be better presenters, we always have a bit of a magic moment where you suddenly see the mask slip a bit and the professional, and I don't mean this nicely, but the professional corporate face slips a little bit and then the real person comes out. And that's when we all, I think as an audience, we become much more attracted to that individual, to that mission, to that cause, because somebody's being very honest.
And that's interesting, isn't it, in the charitable sector? Because sometimes you get that impression where I suppose when it's maybe the authenticity goes out of kilter, where you hear the story, but it's almost been spun to tug at your heartstrings, or it's been spun to part you with your cash, as it were. And I suppose there's some aspects of that storytelling, emotional connection, which can become too cynical. Is it the authenticity that manages that? Yeah,
and I think a great example would be something in the last few years actually happened in the UK. Is that one of the biggest charities in the UK, Cancer Research UK. They moved from a lot of their language was about we're fighting the battle that is cancer, and it was unfair, and everyone gets that. If you look at their current messaging, all the brand stuff has gone, all the corporate messaging has gone. Yeah. There's a very raw video of somebody being told in a doctor's surgery, you have cancer.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
And then you then see the other raw video of actually, because of the support people are giving the charity, it means that the treatments they're getting, whatever, you see them in real life actually living their life a little bit later. Or you even see the ultimate story where people who have cancer, they're going into the surgery again and being told, actually, well done. Yeah. You're fine. Things are better, and you see that emotional breakdown. And there's no spin, there's no corporate language. It's real life, and I think that's good on them, because they've really told that human story. And I think we can do that. I know we talk a lot about charities, but I think it is a very human behaviour thing, and that's why I love my two faces in the sense that I work, with charities, but corporately it's exactly the same. I think if we're spinning sales, people know when we're being sold at. Yeah. I want to get to know Russell. I don't want to get to know the corporation. Yeah. And it was something, I've just been at an event today actually where I was very inspired by a lady who was speaking. There's a whole sense of being yourself. I think when we met as well, Russell, and the other people we had on that day, is that's my single takeaway of everyone is please be yourself. But I know that's hard, because you've got to, the mask has to slip a little bit.
And it's that thing, isn't it, where sometimes you have to be yourself, but you've got to be sensitive to other cultures, haven't you? Because actually, when you're working in other people's environments, it's almost like when you go and visit another aspect of your family. You've got to be yourself, but sometimes you've got to be a slightly different version of it. But some kernel of it has to still be true, isn't it? And I often think it's a bit like when we're branding. You've got to, and in marketing and such like, and selling, in fact, you've got to be yourself, but you've got to be able to manage that, because you could be the sort of person who actually perhaps we don't want to see their full sense and all their glory, if you know what I mean. You want a diminished version of them sometimes.
Yeah, and I think as well, but I suppose every day we've got a slightly different set of chemicals running through our head each day. That means that we're in a slightly more comfortable place or not to tell our own personal story. I mean, I've in my past, there's something very personal about me actually, which has also it's set me up for what I do now, but it's a story I very rarely tell. But because of the context of what we're talking about right now, I mean, I feel comfortable, especially having met you, and I know there's probably other people listening, but this feels kind of one-to-one to me. But there's something very personal in my, I had, and I think I opened up on the course about this, because I think the first thing I love doing is telling a very personal story up front, just to make people feel more comfortable that we've all got issues. And I grew up in the north of England, a place called Blackpool. Not the richest part of the country. Had a really interesting background in that we were constantly moving around as a family. My mum was a single parent. I didn't know my dad at all, and he kind of grew up as a really rebellious little you-know-what in Blackpool as a child, and was on the wrong tracks and was going down a really nasty route. And from that, I kind of pulled back into, I joined an organisation called the Sea Cadets, which is kind of, for young people, it was kind of a military club, which kind of really indoctrinated me into wanting to join the Royal Navy. And then I joined the Navy as a young 16-and-a-half-year-old, and it kind of changed my life in a way. It gave me discipline, perhaps I've not had. It gave me a sense of purpose and all that. But what is extraordinary about that story is that, for 16 years, I was actually living a lie, because I'm gay. And when I joined the Navy in 1983, it was a criminal offence.
Wow.
to be in the military. And when I left the Navy in 99, after 16 years of moving up the ranks as junior rating, going working on different ships around the world, and then becoming a commissioned officer, I left in 99, and it was still illegal to be gay. And I had friends who were arrested.
Yeah.
Were court-martialed, were disciplined out of the Navy, lost their pension. The house was searched, because at that time it was all a threat of blackmail, that you could be blackmailed. And I look back now, and even sometimes when I do tell the story to younger people, they kind of look at me going, "Are you from the Middle Ages?"
Yeah.
They go, "Really?" And I think it's, and for me, there's that kind of, because my mask is slipping as I'm telling you this story, because that's a resilience I had to live with for 16 years. It's a story I can't tell every day.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that today, just because of the session I've had earlier today with an amazing event, it's just empowered me a little bit today to be able to share that with you and the listeners on the story. Because I think, I hope it's coming across as well that, for me, it's a very personal story, and it's part of who I am. And I'm quite proud of that now. I look back, I recently went back to the Naval College at Dartmouth that trains officers. I was asked to go back and give presenting skills to them.
Really?
And that, I got so much out of that, more than they did, because I just went back going, a sense of acceptance, a sense of this is fun. And of course, everything has changed.
Yeah.
Everything has changed. It's everything's accepted now. But for me, it was a very personal story.
That's a remarkable story, actually. And thank you for sharing it, because we have a number of people who come on here and they talk about this. It's almost a feature of resilience in a strange sort of way. This having a hidden side, a hidden persona. We often find people from the transgendered world who have the same sort of thing. They've lived in the wrong gender for many years. They've lied. Mm-hmm. But in a sense, they've attempted to persuade themselves that they are something they're not. And of course, like you say, it's. I mean, living a lie for 16 years. I mean, and then you're talking about authenticity. That must be really hard to manage when you're looking in the mirror every day. and you're just pretending. It must eat away at your soul a little bit. So that's interesting when you said you went back to Dartmouth. So in what way did that feel so positive? What was it about that experience? Because it must have taken quite a bit of courage to go back.
God, you're spot on. You're absolutely spot on. Because actually driving through the gates, I mean, for those people who don't know, the Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth is an incredibly beautiful but hugely imposing building that is just on the hill overlooking the beautiful estuary of Dartmouth in Devon. And it's an iconic building. So driving through those gates with the Royal Cipher on the gates, driving up, just going through security, and then actually I was privileged enough. I was staying at the captain's house, which is part of the amazing building there, and it was kind of a real moment. I think that a lot of people must have as alumni going back to university, which I never went to university in that sense. Dartmouth was my university, so going back there and being asked to teach the new naval officers that are coming through, there's a little moment you go, okay, I haven't done that badly. And the fact that I as we talked when we met on the presentation day, I really grabbed them at the start, because I rarely tell the story I've just told you, if I'm honest, on stage, because I'm always fearful of reaction in a way. But actually, because I thought, I want to punch them and impact them right at the first moment that we met. So as I was wheeled in, and they saw me as a shiny consultant, have been, what do I know? Being told to come in and tell them about presentation skills in the corporate world. And they were like, going, why is this guy, shiny suit? What's all this about? And then actually, when I just went, right, 16 years Royal Navy, I've been a rating, I've been an officer, but I was an imposter. And this is why. I mean, I just, I kind of, it was emotional for me. It was high risk. Luckily, it worked brilliantly, because I had them for the whole day then, and they were just so, a trust developed between all of us, and we really opened up. And a lot of people, their anxiety about presenting came out. And I think, so for me, it was such a rewarding day, but also professionally it was rewarding, because they took away, I think, so much more, because actually I opened up a little bit more. So, every day is a school day, isn't it? I learned quite a lot that day, that in the right moment, in the right way, if I tell the story I've just told you, it works. But I'm always very hesitant. And I think I was honest with you and the other attendees on the presentation day. I get very anxious presenting, and it's my job, and I help other people. But I think you have to be. Yeah. I think you have to have a bit of anxiety, because otherwise it can come across as incredibly arrogant. So I think if I'd waltzed in there at Dartmouth and gone, right, look at me, and look how I was dealt with, and it would have been like, oh, get over yourself. So I always kind of live. I suppose I live with that. And it makes me feel different in different ways every day.
So how did you marshal your own personal resources to conquer that fear? Because for a lot of people in the world who maybe would have bottled it, would never have tackled it, would have got to those gates, looked at that imposing entrance and just sort of gone, ooh, I've got a bad tummy, I think I should take the day off. So what was it about yourself that allowed you to marshal yourself and move forward and actually do it? Because you took a hell of a risk. So, and it must have been a planned risk, because having met you, I know you plan things. So how did you marshal yourself to actually push through that sort of fiery bit?
I think because there was a real expectation on me. So the guy who runs the college now, somebody that I joined the Navy with, he's not a close friend, but he knows my story to a certain extent. And I think probably there was a bit of him was maybe hoping that I might open up in that way. And there was never a guarantee. I've never spoken to him about it at all in the prep or anything. And for me, I wanted to meet expectations. Yeah. Well, I wanted to do more than that. I wanted to exceed expectations. I wanted them to get a great presentation skills session out of me and give them confidence to do that. But also I wanted to kind of show some vulnerability in myself and say to them, it is absolutely fine for you to show controlled vulnerability, because it makes you a more authentic person when you're presenting. Yeah. So I think, I suppose, there was a certain determination. I had to do it. I had to do it for my own benefit, but also because, I mean, it was a client as well. I think if I'd walked away, I was paid to do it, and if I'd walked away from it, I think I would have professionally wouldn't probably done me any good. So I drove through, but thank goodness I did. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, but I think it's that part, isn't it, about you have to take risks in life, and that your resilience builds from the risks you take, and sometimes you don't know how it's going to turn out, and you don't know what the outcome's going to be, but you can just. But that's what risk management is about, isn't it? It's about facing the future and mitigating what risk you can and having a contingency, but then still doing it anyway. And I was interested because you were talking very much about the Navy in terms of, in a sense, the sort of challenges of being there. But it does very much train that sort of mental discipline into people, I think. Is that fair to say?
It is, yeah. And I think the leadership training I went through there was extraordinary as a naval officer. It's so intriguing because I'm doing some work at the moment with the Royal Marines. I'm helping the Royal Marines do better presentations, and you kind of go, what? The Royal Marines, the elite fighting force, the commandos. What they must be oozing confidence, in who they are. But they're in a very disciplined organisation. There's an expectation on how they perform. They're all individuals, and especially if they're out of uniform or in a more commercial civilian environment, they've got the same anxieties we do, and that's quite reassuring. Because then you see them going, actually, what can I tell? What leadership can I give to a group of business people? Well, guess what? Your stories and how you developed and how you're as a commando is massively fascinating to people. Yeah. So it's going back to the be yourself thing. And I suppose I'm going off tangent a little bit here, but I think for me it's that ability to have really good leadership training, which allows you then to have a comfort blanket around you and expose certain things at certain times. And so I think, I wouldn't, for instance, I will never tell the story I've just told you on this podcast. I will never tell this story to the Royal Marine audience.
No.
Because talk about risk management, that there would be they're obviously a diverse society, but that is high risk for me to tell that story because assumptions are made, and also people then go, well, hang on, he was living a lie for 16 years in a military environment. That's how truthful can that be? So there's a different viewpoint. So I'd never tell that story there.
It's sort of situational authenticity in a way, isn't it?
Yes.
But then that's that bit about, it's that thing, isn't it? So you've got the thing in rugby at the moment where you've got someone who's openly gay. You've got women's football where people are openly gay. And you've got men's football where no man in the whole of men's professional football is gay. And so you're right, you have to be careful because the first duty you have is not necessarily to be a role model, it's to yourself, isn't it? You have to look after yourself first. And if you're working in a world or a culture where that's personally dangerous, why would you expose yourself? Why would you make yourself vulnerable to that level? It sort of makes no sense. So that's a very interesting message where it's okay having a story, but it's where you tell it or how you tell it.
Yes,
is the critical piece, isn't it?
And I think that I want to say to conform. So I think I was conforming. I was in the Navy. I conform when I go to certain presentations, and I meet expectation where I don't tell that story. And it's taken me years to get to the point where I can, I'm having this conversation with you now, if I'm honest, because it's not something I can do every day, and it's less about me. It's more about how do I conform to what as I perceive as society's rules at the right time, at the right place. And that's more about my anxiety and my hang-ups than any audience.
Yes.
So I think it's something we just learn every day, don't we? And I say you're getting this version of me today just because I've been to a really inspiring session this morning, and it's kind of it's really kind of empowered me, and that's what I love how I love working with people to try and do the same. I try and get people to be more honest, more open about their anxieties, about presenting and speaking, and then really wanting to empower them to really be more personal when they present, and be less of the corporate machine.
Yes. That's interesting. So how on earth did you move from being in the Navy to the fundraising world that I understand that, but how on earth did you get from fundraising into training people to do presentations? Well, was a plan, or was this something that just happened?
Absolutely accidental, like all the best things in life, really. So I'd had amazing 16 years in the Navy, and I've got absolutely no regrets. I had an amazing time. Did everything I wanted to do in the Navy. Knew that if I was going to do another career, that was the right time to go. So I left the Navy, and as I was leaving, an opportunity came up to help train the lifeboat crews of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, which is the organisation. It's a charity in the UK that operates all our rescue craft around the coast, with I think it's 400 something lifeboat stations, lifeguards and everything, and not government funded. And I went into a role there to help train the lifeboat crew. So these are volunteers who have normal day jobs. And then if the lifeboat is needed, if there's an emergency and the lifeboat's needed, they carry a pager with them. The pager goes off. They drop everything at work, at home, go out to these lifeboat stations, go out. So these are individuals who, very few of them have had any kind of maritime experience, and they're willing to get out in lifeboats and go out in horrendous conditions, risking their life for complete strangers. So I was honoured to kind of get that role where I was training lifeboat crews. I was looking after all the lifeboat stations in the southwest of England, which is, it's a beautiful part of the world. You never put a lifeboat station at an ugly location. They're always on beautiful headlands, amazing. So I was very fortunate. And while I was there, the director of fundraising at the charity saw me speak at a conference about the importance of crew training and went, "You've just given us our new appeal. And we're going to run the biggest appeal we've ever done," which at the time was £10 million. And it was for crew training. He went, "And you're going to lead the campaign." I was like, "What? I'm not a fundraiser. What are you talking about?" He went, "No, but you can inspire people." And I always felt very genuinely humbled by that. So I moved from operations into that side of it. But interesting, especially for your US listeners, I spent some time operationally actually with the United States Coast Guard when I was with the Royal National Lifeboat. I spent 2 years in America at Yorktown, and I love the fact that they kind of said, right, well, we've got a Brit coming over as our charity ambassador, and we're going to put them at Yorktown, which is the one place where, of course, good old Brits, we had to surrender. So we had great banter. I had 2 years going around the United States with the US Coast Guard team teaching people lifeboat skills, which was an amazing experience for me. And I think coming back to then go into fundraising, we then ran this appeal. It was highly successful, not down to me, but down to an amazing team of fundraisers behind me. Hit target 2 years early, finally raised over 17 million. And then I kind of moved into more of a presentation role at RNLI to actually just go out and inspire supporters and major donors with what the cause was about. And then quickly switched over to, left the RNLI and then went to work for a consultancy in London, some brilliant people who are great at storytelling, and then moved on to other charities in that. So my kind of, my second career has been charity. And from that, my third career now is this presentation consultancy, because it brings out the best of what I've done in the Navy. I think it brings out the best of what I've done in the charity world. And I now get the chance to I'm in that middle of the three circles. I'm extremely passionate about it. It luckily pays the bills, and I'm giving something back.
Well, and that's interesting, because a lot of people hear some of the talk of these motivational speakers who are saying you need to have a goal, you need to have a plan, you need to map your life out, blah, 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 blah. But what you're demonstrating is that you can find your passion in what you're doing. You don't have to go out, you don't have to invent it by inventing what the passion is and then going out and finding it. And I think that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because luck and the confluence of events is actually just coming from what you're good at being applied into a different area, isn't it? It's an interesting way for people to think about how they can create a career direction for themselves just by saying, what do I like doing, is exactly what you said, what am I passionate about, and what pays the bills. It's that transferable skills sort of idea. And you find passion in how you do what you do, I suppose. Was that been your approach or a variation of that?
No, it absolutely has. And I think firstly, my passion, without doubt, is presenting and helping people to be represented. I love that. And then from that becomes, it's the money stuff. Yeah. So it helps them. It helps charities, corporations, whatever, to obviously raise more funds is required. But what I suppose the background thing that's helped me, and it's interesting that question you asked about goals, is that, and it feels like this is turning into a Navy podcast, because actually what the ironic thing in that is, in the Navy, every 2 years you move as an individual from a ship to another ship or a shore base, whatever. And every 2 years you change roles, you change into a new job where you go on training courses, but you've got a whole new set of skills. But probably the most interesting thing is you move as an individual. So you don't move as a group of people who you've got to know. Every 2 years you're moving into a new role with new people in a new environment, and you have to develop and adapt your skills. And that's carried over. That has carried over since I've left the Navy. Every 2 years I get a bit of an itch, and I go, actually, what's my next slight challenge? So I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 10-year plan. I have a 2-year plan. Yeah. And every 2 years, I just look again and just see, actually, what's the opportunity here for me to do something new? What's the thing that would continually stretch me? And the one thing I am grateful for the Navy for giving me is bold ambition. Yeah. So you're always you're always looking for the next slot, and that's something I've carried forward into civilian life. Is I'm always looking for that next opportunity.
That's interesting, isn't it? I'm just sort of pondering that, because it's quite a refreshing way of thinking about it. I mean, I often work in large corporates with people who've sort of been in the same company for 17 years, and they say that, however many years it might be, and they say things like, "Oh, well, it's we've grown and grown and grown and grown." And then when you start chatting to them about their careers, the word that comes out more than often is stale. And actually, that 2-year mindset is actually quite an interesting way of thinking about it. I mean, there's a sort of hockey stick approach in sales where you say you arrive and then everything goes, falls apart, and then by the end of the second year you leave on the top of the peak. Mm-hmm. But I like that idea, because I think that's that thing about keeping your eye on the marketplace, keeping yourself marketable, keeping yourself nimble, and that's really having a sense of purpose or a sense of market awareness is actually part of resilience. So you're not ever becoming a victim, because you're actually just giving yourself a new set of control and choices every 2 years, aren't you? I mean, it's really
and I think, as you say, sales, it's the same going back to charities. I mean, within the charity world, the thing that really is in the middle of all my 3 circles is appeals. So I love working with charities to help develop, establish, launch, and see through to conclusion appeals. And as we're talking, I've just realised that tends to be a 2-year program. In that I'll go in with a client. I'm working with somebody right now. It's taken 6 months to nail what's going to be a highly emotional appeal that's going to publicly launch in September for a really big charity in the country. And I'm on a journey with them. We're privately launching to some select people next month. We're publicly launching in September, and I'll get them to a place where they'll be absolutely fine. But within 2 years, they probably won't need me. Thank goodness they won't need me, and I'll move on to somebody else. So it's funny, as we're talking, it has just made me realise that 2-year thing actually probably worked with my clients as well.
It's a very healthy thing, isn't it? Because I do meet consultants and who so basically, once they get a clause into a client, to sort of milk them forever. And I've always had that same belief that actually you need to have the ability to you need to know that you're going to say goodbye, so you transfer your skills. Then you don't get bored of each other, or sick of each other, or stale with each other. So, but the question obviously begs itself to be asked, which is, how many years have you been doing what you've been doing now? This last bit, because if it's obviously an iteration of some form of 2 years, is it?
It's there you go. For 5 years I've been as the Inspiration Bureau. 5 years now I've been running as the presentation face. 20 years still going in the charity sector. Very much. And I kind of 16 years. So it's got to be an even number, hasn't it? So
next year, 2020, my goodness, 6 years.
It's a good one. But I kind of, so I say the charity stuff, 20 years now I've been with the charity sector, and long may that continue. 5 years now as a more corporate presentation consultant. And that's where I say my passion has really grown now. And then the military kind of, in the past. So I think it's what's next. I'm again, today's been quite an inspiring day for me, ironically, from the Inspiration Bureau. But and for me, it's given me a sense of I'm on the right track. I'm on the right track. Stop beating myself up. And my slogan for this year, as we have New Year's resolutions, don't we? But I've said, that it's not going to be a resolution. It's a mission for me. Is not to sweat the small stuff.
Yeah,
is to really kind of enjoy what I'm doing. As long as my clients are happy as well, and I'm giving something back, and I get so much. And that's why I'm so focused on charity work. Still, is that I get so much back from those charity works. I'm just about to finish with a client. I've been with them, funny old thing, 2 years. The appeal comes to an end on the 1st of April. They've just blown the target out the water this week, and that's a brand new air ambulance helicopter coming to Cornwall, and that will be emotional. 1st of April, going down there, and that was an extraordinary journey with them. And I'm looking for the next emotive appeal. I've got a couple of things in the pipeline now, but I'm always looking for the next one. And say on the more corporate side, really helping people to kind of grow their skills.
Yeah, interesting. I must talk to you about a charity that I'm involved in. You see, now this is all about connections and links. So I'm just all my lights are going off. So Andy, it's fascinating talking to you. But if people want to get hold of you and have a look at what you do, and maybe talk about fundraising or presentation skills, because I can attest to your course itself, and I'm someone that does a lot of professional presentations and thoroughly enjoyed it and learned a lot. And it was only a taster as well, the thing that you and I were on. So how can people get hold of you? Where can people find you in the world?
Well, best, of course, I think, is good old LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn as Andy Taylor White, TAYLOR-WHYTE. And also at the Inspiration Bureau, which is the inspirationbureau.co.uk.
Let me leap in there. It's not the Inspiration Bureau, it's inspirationbureau.co.uk, isn't it?
It is, the website. Yes, yeah. Good call. Thank you. But I think LinkedIn's that's my platform of choice.
Yeah.
For the next 2 years, that's my platform of choice. I'm really enjoying it actually on that. I think we can do stuff across multi-channels, don't we? But I'm getting lots of conversations, lots of engagement, and a really big audience on LinkedIn. So Andy Taylor White, Inspiration Bureau. Happy to chat there, or say the website is inspirationbureau.co.uk.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, thank you for spending time with us today, and thanks for that story. It was amazing. And I think what you've highlighted for me is that I've always found the storytelling thing difficult. I find it hard to listen to, and I find it hard to tell. But actually, you are absolutely right. You've sort of nailed for me that if you want people to see behind the persona, you do have to give something of yourself, don't you? And naturally, that's how you build trust and rapport, and that's the only way to be authentic, isn't it?
And honest. And I think we're all so intelligent that we pick up if someone's trying to fluff that.
Yeah.
And trying to really be not imposter syndrome, but genuinely be an imposter. I think people work that out if it's not truthful. Yeah. So the more truthful the story, always the better engagement.
Yeah. Well, thank you for spending time with us today. We've had all sorts of IT issues thrown our way, but you've been extremely generous with your time. I really do thank you for spending time and talk to you about your journey and what other people can perhaps pick up from you today. So thanks so much.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. All the very best.
And you take care.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. I hope you found that episode useful and interesting. Feedback is always welcomed, and if you are in the mood to subscribe to us or even leave a comment on iTunes or Stitcher, that would be amazing. If you want to suggest ideas or even people you would like me to interview, then reach out to us at qedod.com/contact. As I said earlier, you can go to qedod.com/podcasts for show notes or follow the links. And you can go to qedod.com/extras to access offers, tools and resources, including free articles and ebooks. For those of you that would be interested in supporting our work and contributing more proactively, you can find our new Patreon page at patreon.com. Then search for Resilience Unravelled. I look forward to being in your ear next time around. Take care.